But Harris, if the S&P 500 returns 7 to 8% on average per year, then why should I only project for 4 to 5% safe withdrawal rate?
Hey folks, I'm Harris, and in this video, we're going to be talking about what the safe withdrawal rate is. And if you stick around till the end, you'll also know why I believe it is the single most important factor to consider if you are thinking about financial independence, especially in 2021. Let's get started. Before we dive deep into what the safe withdrawal rate is, let's first understand what the financial independence number or the FIRE number represents. Your financial independence number or your FIRE number is essentially the amount of assets that you need to accumulate and then invest so that when you do retire, you can live off the proceeds or the returns from those investments, if you will. So, what is the safe withdrawal rate? According to Investopedia, it's the percentage at which a retiree can draw annually from their accumulated assets without running out of money prior to death. In other words, what percent of your principal can you withdraw each year without you going bankrupt or without your bank balance dropping to zero? The way I like to think of it personally is what percent of money can I withdraw each year so that my principal doesn't go down at all? I want to maintain my principal over time, not have it go down at all. And you might be thinking, well, how is it possible to withdraw money each year without your principal going down? And to illustrate that, let's go over a few examples. So let's assume that our annualized expenses are about $40,000 a year. So essentially we live off of $40,000 a year. And then let's assume anything that we invest, we typically get on average about a 4% return each year. And this is just an example. Feel free to plug in your own numbers and see what you come up with. But we're going to use these two numbers for now. So $40,000 for my annual expenses and then 4% for my average rate of return on investment. So what we're going to do, we're going to take $40,000 and then we're going to divide by 4% or 0.04 if you were paying attention in math class. And what we get as a result is $1 million. So $1 million is what we need to be able to generate $40,000 a year doing absolutely nothing. So essentially you're living for free, chilling on the Bahamas, living like a king. I'm just kidding. But really, that $1 million is going to remain $1 million while paying you $40,000 a year to live. And again, how that works is you started off with $1 million. Over the course of the next 12 months, that either appreciated or paid you dividends or rental income or whatever your investments are, a total of $40,000 for that year. So now you're at $1.04 million, and now you have $40,000 of that to spend while maintaining the $1 million that you started with. And again, this is just an oversimplified example. We're not accounting for taxes yet. That's also something to consider, but hopefully this illustrates where I'm going with it. Now, here's what's interesting. So we used 4% in that example, right? We assumed that we're only getting about 4% returns, which is still pretty good. But if you consider the fact that the S&P 500, which if you don't know, the S&P 500 is basically a performance index of some of our top 500 companies in the United States, that has actually returned inflation adjusted about 7 to 8% per year. So if we try to be a little bit less conservative and we assume instead of 4%, we actually get 5% returns on average on our investments, we can then calculate how much we need to save up to be able to live off of 5% returns or a safe withdrawal rate of 5%. After all, that $1 million does seem like a whole lot of money to save up, right? So again, back to our calculation. If we start with $40,000 and this time divide by 0.05, we end up with $800,000. So $800,000 is what we'll need to be able to live for free as long as we get an average annual rate of 5% and we keep our expenses in check. All I can say is, wow guys. So we just went from having to save $1 million, assuming that we make 4% interest each year, down to having to save only $800,000 if we can maintain an average annual rate of return of 5% on our investments. That's crazy. So just that 1% has a $200,000 impact on how much we need to save. I hope you could see how powerful this is. So we did 4 and 5%, but I just can't contain myself. So how much do you think, and this is just for poops and giggles, thumbs up if you like poop, I know I do, but how much do you think we would need to save up to be able to live off of 10% returns each year. Which, by the way, I have a video on a 10% return stock that I'll link somewhere up here whenever I get to it. And that's just another reason you should hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel so you'll be the first to see that video when it comes out. Anywho, going back to that 10%. To calculate how much I'll need to save with a safe withdrawal rate of 10%, I'm just gonna take my $40,000 in expenses again, divide by 10% or 0.1, and that will give me $400,000. So, wow, that's all I could say, guys, is just wow. So I just went from having to save $1 million down to having to save $800,000 to now just having to save $400,000 just because of that difference in my expected safe withdrawal rate. Now, some of you might say, but Harris, if the S&P 500 returns 7 to 8% on average per year, then why should I only project for 4 to 5% safe withdrawal rate? Well, yes, Becky, the S&P 500 did return 7 to 8% on average each year. But what if it didn't? You would be royally... I apologize to any Beckys watching this. And that's why we call it the safe withdrawal rate, for that margin of safety. You see, the S&P 500 or any market index or any stock for that matter doesn't always go up each year. So when you do factor in, the potential downsides, the worst case scenarios, it's less deceiving to live off of 4% than it is living off of 10%. In addition, if you are retired or you are close to retiring, a lot of your assets are probably parked in less volatile instruments. And what I mean by that is something like real estate or bonds or even dividend paying stocks, which are less volatile. They're more promising, but they give obviously a lower return. So just be mindful of that. That being said, the widely adopted safe withdrawal rate is about 4%. There is a positive correlation between the safe withdrawal rate and the amount of risk you're taking on. So generally, the higher your withdrawal rate, the more risk you are taking on. That being said, depending on your risk tolerance, your spending habits, and your diversification of assets, you can tweak that number as you see fit. Now that you've made it this far, why is this important? Why is the safe withdrawal rate the most important element when considering financial independence? It's important because that percentage alone is what determines how much money you need to save to be able to become financially independent, depending on your expenses, of course. We walked through 3 different examples, the 4%, 5%, 10%. And I mean, you saw the impact of how that brought us from having to save $1 million down to having to save $400,000. So that percentage alone drives a lot of impact on how much you need to save to become financially independent. It's now up to you to determine which number suits you based on what your projected returns are, what your expenses are, and how risk averse you are. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this helpful and hope that enlightened your path to financial independence. Please be sure to subscribe if you do enjoy content like this. Until next time, signing off.